Hey you guys, it's Mish. Welcome back to my channel where I like to bring you guys along with me as I navigate my faith, fitness, and financial journeys. So one of my Q2 spiritual goals was to read the Book of Esther and to read the Book of Proverbs. So with that in mind, today will be part one of a 5-part mini series where I go over the Book of Esther. So if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to stick around and check out the rest of the video. Actually reading out of this women's study Bible that I ordered offline through Target. I think I got it for $21 at the time. Now they are on Amazon, I think for like $25, and originally I had purchased this from Barnes & Noble for about $50, but I ended up returning it after I found it online at Target for $21. I really love this book. It gives quite a bit of background knowledge, and then I'm able to better understand this version. This is the NIV version versus my King James version of the Bible. Chapter 1 opens up letting us know that the story is taking place in the Persian Empire around the time of 36 to 465 BC. He's in his 3rd year of being king, and during this time he decides to put on this elaborate banquet. So the banquet ends up lasting 7 days. Throughout those 7 days, the queen, which is Queen Vashti, she's not allowed to be in the king's harem unless she is invited in by him. So on the very last day, the king tells his eunuchs to go and fetch his wife. So the eunuchs go and fetch his wife, and during this time she is hosting her own kind of girls event slash banquet for women of prestige, because the men at the king's banquet are like princes, they're nobles, they're some type of officials, they're high up. So pretty much she decides to decline this invitation. So the eunuchs come back, even though that she's already been announced and being expected by the king and his guests, and he pretty much gets really angry. And later on, he kind of sits down with some of his councilmen slash wise men and asks them what should be done about this, because he regarded this gesture of hers to be highly disrespectful. They later come to the conclusion that she needs to be deposed, and she's no longer allowed to be in the presence of the king. And reason being, they don't want her to be a negative influence on other women throughout the Persian Empire and kind of influence them to go against their husbands and not follow his commands and everything under that. So they later decide that they are then going to look for all these virgins in the different regions and present them to the king and find somebody that's more suitable for the position versus Vashti. So message gets out, and that kind of is the gist of chapter 1. Chapter 2, we're introduced to Mordecai, who is the cousin of Esther, aka Hadassah. So Hadassah is her Hebrew name, and then Esther is kind of like her Babylonian name. He's his cousin, however, he's kind of like a father figure to her because her parents died very early on, and he took her in and adopted her. So he gives her word that, hey, like, this is what's going on. You're very beautiful. You need to go and be one of those women that the king selects. So she presents herself to Haggai, and Haggai is the eunuch that's over all of the females that are going to be presented to the king. So she presents herself to Haggai, and then part of this process is, if you're selected, you are then required to undergo a year of kind of like pampering and self-care before you're even able to step foot in front of the king. So she eventually makes it to that point where she's able to step foot in front of the king. He immediately deems her beautiful, worthy, and decides that she's going to be queen. But keep in mind, the process between the Queen Vashti being deposed and Esther taking the throne is a 4-year period. So throughout this time, there's all these other virgins being presented to the king. If the king decides that he does not like these women after having intercourse with them, then he kind of puts them into one of the two harems, well, the secondary harem on the palace, and then they're not seen or heard from pretty much anymore, and like king summons them for some reason. In this time, Mordecai tells Esther, do not disclose your background. So Esther is of Jewish descent, and keep in mind they are in a Persian empire. Fast forward a little bit, Mordecai ends up getting this position in the king's court, where he overhears that two of the king's guardsmen plans on assassinating the king. He later relays that information to Esther, who later tells the king, and they find out that it's true. And that's kind of where chapter 2 ends. So if you guys are interested in hearing more about how this story pans out, be sure to check out part 2 of this 5-part mini-series. And as usual, I want to thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to watch my video. And don't forget to take time to enjoy your own journey. I'll catch you guys in the comments into the next video. Bye.